All right, Jabosai, we're good on Zoom. Everyone hears me still? Good, excellent. All right, Jabosai, with that, let us begin. So today's daf is Kuf Lamed Zayin, 137. We have a lot to do today. We are picking up Emir Hashem at the Mishnah on Kuf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors. To thank our Week of Learning sponsor, Ira and Miriam Grossman, for dedicating the learning in honor of the commemoration of the yahrzeit of Ira's mother, Freda Bas Shmuel. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. As well as to thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Avron and Gali Elbaum, for dedicating the learning this week in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Rezel Bas Chanoch, and in this chus for Refuah Shlema for Sarah Bas Rezel and Shraga Moshe Ben Fega. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah, and those who require a refuah should have one together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. And also with that, let us begin. A beautiful, beautiful sugya ahead of us today. So we are picking up at the Mishnah. So write the Mishnah as follows. Misha hayulo shnei tinokos. Echad lamol achara Shabbos ve'echad lamol b'Shabbos. Well, it's an interesting case. Someone has two babies, right? Someone has two babies. So the Moel has two babies to circumcise. One of the babies is supposed to get a bris milah after Shabbos. Sorry. Okay, so there are two, computer. Okay, good. Thank you, Maish. Shouldn't have the computer problems today. Sorry. All right, so there are two babies. The Moel has two babies to circumcise. One to go ahead and circumcise after Shabbos, and one to circumcise on Shabbos. V'shachach umal es shel achara Shabbos b'Shabbos. So we'll say, so just see what's happening over here. Two babies that the Moel has to circumcise. One of them his 8th day is Sunday, and the other one, his 8th day is Shabbos. We've got a Shabbos baby and a Sunday baby. So what happened? V'shachach umal es shel achara Shabbos b'Shabbos. The Moel makes a mistake. It happens, and he circumcises the Sunday baby on Shabbos. Chayiv. So the Mishnah says he's chayiv. Now look at Rashi for just a moment. What does it mean that he's chayiv? Rashi says the ta'a b'dvar mitzvah v'lo asa mitzvah huva aveli chabura sholo tzorech ubaha afil Rabbi Shomoda. So we'll say, so in this case over here, remember, the act of performing a bris milah when it's not warranted is a malacha, right? That is a malacha, because at the end of the day, you've caused the chabur, you've caused an injury, and it's not b'makom mitzvah. So therefore, again, the act of being mal, the Sunday baby on Shabbos, by definition, creates a chiyuv chatos for Shabbos. So next case, echad lamol be'erev Shabbos ve'echad lamol b'Shabbos. We'll say, look at the following case. What happens if you had a Friday baby and a Shabbos baby? So two babies. One was supposed to be circumcised on Friday, one was supposed to be circumcised on Shabbos. And what happened? You didn't circumcise the Friday baby. V'shachach umal es shal erev Shabbos b'Shabbos. That was in this case over here, then on Shabbos, you end up going ahead and accidentally circumcising the Friday baby on Shabbos. What's the halacha? Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatos v'Rabbi Yoshua poter. In that case, Rabbi Eliezer says you're chayiv chatos, and Rabbi Yoshua says you're potter. Look again at Rashi for just a moment. So we'll say, so again, remember, in case number one, I had two babies. Shabbos baby, Sunday baby. I accidentally go ahead and end up giving a bris milah to the Sunday baby on Shabbos. It appears that in that case, at least according to the Mishnah, everyone is agreeing that halacha l'maisem chay v'chatos. Case number two, I have a Friday baby and a Shabbos baby. I did, obviously in this case, I did not give the Friday baby a bris milah on Friday. So now I have both babies before me on Shabbos. I accidentally go ahead and give a bris to the Friday baby. What happens over here? Rabbi Eliezer says I'm chay v'chatos, and Rabbi Yoshua says that I am potter. So take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, Echad lamol b'Shabbos ve'echad lamol b'erev Shabbos b'shachach umal es shel erev Shabbos b'Shabbos Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatos. Why? Dimila shelo b'zmana ina docha Shabbos. So we'll say again, Rabbi Eliezer's logic is pretty straightforward. Only a milah b'zmana, right? Only again an 8th day milah is docha Shabbos. So now you took the erev Shabbos baby who's now is in his 9th day, and you went ahead and you gave him a bris milah. So halacha l'maisa, that's not warranted on Shabbos, and therefore halacha l'maisa, you're chayav v'chatos. Rashi goes on, he says, va'afal gav the ta'a b'dvar mitzvah she'itarid ba'oso shal Shabbos umitoch kach ta'a bazeh va'af bazeh asa mitzvah she'iroihu lamol eloshin adocha Shabbos srile Rabbi Eliezer ta'a b'dvar mitzvah asa mitzvah sheish b'chiv chatos chayiv. Rabbi Yeshua polter desvirle ta'a b'dvar mitzvah asa mitzvah pater. So we'll say, we're going to see something very interesting over here. So we'll say, so Rabbi Eliezer holds that you're chayiv v'chatos. Why? Because you gave this 9-day-old baby a bris milah, right? Remember again, the baby should have gotten its bris on Erev Shabbos. You gave the baby the bris on Shabbos. That is a chiyuv chatos. That is a chiyuv chatos. Rabbi Yeshua, on the other hand, holds as follows. He holds your pater. Why? Because Rabbi say this is what's called ta'a b'dvar mitzvah va'asa mitzvah. You made a mistake regarding a mitzvah, so you did something quote unquote wrong, but your wrong action resulted in a mitzvah. So we'll say, look at this. Remember, contrast the Friday baby with the Sunday baby. When you accidentally go ahead and give the Sunday baby a bris milah on Shabbos, we'll say, have you performed the mitzvah? Have you performed the mitzvah? No. Right? Why? Because you circumcised that baby on the 7th day. It's too early. That's not bris milah. Masha'en kain, when you go ahead and you circumcise the Friday baby on Shabbos, granted, you should not have done it. But did you perform a mitzvah? Absolutely yes, because anytime after the 8th day, from the 8th day and forward, the baby is subject to the laws of milah. So halacha l'maisa, your act was effective, and you in fact did perform a mitzvah. So we'll say, so that is the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Really quite fascinating. The way Rashi formulates it is ta'a b'dvar mitzvah va'asa mitzvah. You made a mistake regarding the performance of a mitzvah, so the act was wrong, but it was right. In other words, the act was wrong, but lamaisa, the wrongful act resulted in a bona fide mitzvah. So is there liability in such a case like that? Rabbi Eliezer says yes. Rabbi Yoshua says no. Says the Gemara, Rav Huna masni chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda masni pater. So we'll say, as we're going to see now, Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda had two different versions of the first case in our Mishnah. Remember again, the way our Mishnah reads, the way we just read it is, case number one is, Mala's 2 babies on Shabbos, right, performed for circumcision. One is a Shabbos baby, should be circumcised on Shabbos, and the second ultimately is a Sunday baby, And what happens? He ends up going ahead and circumcising the Sunday baby. So the shaila, of course, comes up. What occurs under those circumstances? There, in that first case, there did not seem to be any level of dispute. Everyone was agreeing that halacha l'maisa, you are chayiv v'chatos. So watch this. Says the Gemara, Rav Huna masni chayiv, Rabbi Yehuda masni pater. So Rav Huna masni chayiv, disanyas. We'll say, what's Rav Huna's version? Look at the brayso. Amar Rav Shimon Elazar. Lo nechleku Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, amisha hayu lo beis tinokos, echad lamol b'Shabbos, ve'echad lamol achar haShabbos. So we'll say, both Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Elazar agree. In a case where the mole has 2 babies, right? One is a Sunday baby and one is a Shabbos baby. And what happens? B'shachach umal eshel achar Shabbos b'Shabbos, and you end up being mal the Sunday baby on Shabbos shuchayiv. Everyone agrees. So let's remember again. This is Rav Huna's version. In Rav Huna's version, everyone agrees that if you were mal, if you circumcised a Sunday baby on Shabbos, that you are chayiv. Which, again, makes sense. Because l'maisa, again, to circumcise a Sunday baby on Shabbos, that baby's time for milah has not yet arrived. You've performed the chabura, right? You've, quote-unquote, caused the wound, caused bleeding. Shelo b'makom mitzvah. So, amar mechloku. So, what is the machlokes? Where does the machlokes come up? Amisha hayulo beis tinokos. With someone who had 2 babies in front of him. Echad lamo be'erev Shabbos ve'echad lamo b'Shabbos. So we'll say, right, the machlokes case is as follows. This version is exactly the way our Mishnah read. Right? Rather, what's the machlokes case? I have a Shabbos baby and an Erev Shabbos baby. A Friday baby and a Shabbos baby. Umal shel Erev Shabbos b'Shabbos. And the mole ends up circumcising the Friday baby on Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatos. Rabbi Eliezer says you're chayiv chatos. Rabbi Yeshua poter, and Rabbi Yeshua says you're pater. So we'll say Rav Huna's version is just as we read it in the Mishnah. So we'll say, so what's the root of the machlokes? Ushnehem Lo lamdu ela me'avodas kochavim. So this is really very interesting. And both of them learn out their respective shitas from where? From idolatry. So what does this mean? Look at Rashi. Ela me'avodas zara. Shehukshu kol chatos shebatorah lechatos avodas zara. Because we'll say, interestingly enough, so the paradigmatic example of a carbon chatos for the inadvertent commission of a sin is avodas zara. And all other laws of chatos are learned out from avodah zara. Dichsiv Torah achos yelachem. Fine. So watch this. Rabbi Eliezer Savar, first wide line, ka'avodas kochavim. The Rebbe say this is just like a case of idolatry. In other words, Rebbe say when you go ahead and what? When you go and accidentally, when you go and you accidentally circumcise the Friday baby on Shabbos. So Rabbi Eliezer says you're going to be chayiv. Why? Ma'avodas kochavim amrachman lo savit v'chi avid mechayiv hachanami loshna. Rabbi Eliezer says avodah zara serves as the paradigm for a chatos. So what's the halacha by avodah zara? It's a simple halacha. What's the halacha? Don't do it. And what happens if you do it accidentally? You bring a chatos. So too says Rabbi Eliezer. Anytime you do something that you are not supposed to do, you bring a chatos. So you're not supposed to give a Friday baby a bris milah on Shabbos. If you did so, you're chayav achatos. That's it. There's nothing more to talk about. The Gemara said, Rabbi Yeshua, hasam delav mitzvah hachamitz. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, that's not a fair comparison. You can't compare worshiping avodah zara to going ahead and giving a Friday baby a bris milah on Shabbos for one simple reason. Avodah zara, when you do it, it's an aveira. When you go ahead and you circumcise a Friday baby on Shabbos, as much as you did something that you were not supposed to do, the effect of your action was the performance of a mitzvah. You did do something. I will say, what's the proof? I'll give you what's the proof that you performed the mitzvah? What's the proof? After you go ahead and illegally circumcise that Friday baby on Shabbos, do you have to do like another hatafas dam bris? Do you have to draw blood again on Sunday for the sake of milah? And the answer is no. No, which shows you what? You've given that baby a proper milah. So Rabbi says, here's the machlokes. So Rabbi Eliezer says, listen, what essentially Rabbi Eliezer says is we don't look at the byproduct of your action, rather we look at your action. Did you do something right or wrong on Shabbos? It's a very simple answer. I will say, there's a very big muster in this. Rabbi Eliezer says, essentially, in life, your actions are either right or wrong. There's just one answer. Is it right or is it wrong? So we spend so much time in life trying to it's not really wrong. I know it's not really right, but it's not really wrong. But I'm going to show you. Rabbi says either it's right or it's wrong. So you went ahead and you circumcised the Friday baby on Shabbos. Right or wrong? And the answer is wrong. Wrong. Fine. That's it. It was just done. I understand that the milah is a kosher milah. I understand that the byproduct of your action is that you committed a mitzvah. But lamaisa, if you were asking a shayla, should I do this? Should I not do this? Mutter or asur? The answer is it's asur. It's asur. One says asur chayv chatas. Rabbi Yeshua says, but that's not fair. You're not looking in the action in totality. While it is true that you made a mistake, that is true you made a mistake. There's two things going for you over here. Number one, you made a mistake in the context of performing a mitzvah, right? Your intention over here was not to violate anything. Your intention was to go and perform a mitzvah. That's aleph. And beis, you did actually perform a mitzvah. What you did actually turned out to be a bona fide mitzvah act. So Rabbi Yeshua says that should count for something, at least to exempt you from a chatas. So we'll say that's Rav Huna's version, which mirrors our Mishnah. Rabbi Huda Masni Pater. Rabbi Huda, on the other hand, his version has Pater. We'll see what it means in just a moment. The Tanya, Reb Meir said, Lo nechluku Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua, Amisha hayelo beis tinokos, echad lamol be'erev Shabbos, ve'echad lamol b'Shabbos. So we'll say, so Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua don't disagree in the following situation. If somebody had two babies to circumcise, one was an Erev Shabbos baby, Friday baby, and one is a Shabbos baby. V'shachach u'malat shal Erev Shabbos b'Shabbos, and you end up circumcising the Friday baby on Shabbos. We'll say in this version, everyone agrees, shehu pater. Everyone agrees that you're also listen to this. So alternate version, Rabbi Huda, that if you go ahead and you have two babies, one is a Friday baby, one is a Shabbos baby. You end up circumcising the Friday baby on Shabbos, that you are pater. Everyone agrees that you're pater. Why does everybody agree that you're pater? Because again, bepashtos, tarid bidvar mitzvah, va'asa mitzvah. You are preoccupied with the performance of a mitzvah, and what? And what? You actually did perform a mitzvah. So everyone will agree, it's not mutter, let's be clear, you're not allowed to proactively do that, but if you did it, you are part of mechatas. So what's the machlokes? Ama nechluku, amisha hayu lo beis tinokos echad lamol achar haShabbos, ve'echad lamol b'Shabbos, v'shachach umal es shal achar haShabbos b'Shabbos. What's the machlokes case? The machlokes case is when you have a Shabbos baby and a Sunday baby, and you accidentally are mal the Sunday baby on Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer mechayev chatos. Rabbi Eliezer says you're chayev chatos. Rabbi Yeshua poter, and Rabbi Yeshua says that you are poter. Ushnehem lo lamdua ela me'avodos kochavim, and both learn out their respective shittas from idolatry. Rabbi Eliezer savar kavodos kochavim ma'avodos kochavim amar achman lo savid. So we'll say like this, right? Remember, going back to what we said before, idolatry is the source for all chiyuvei chatos, right? Concept of a chatos for inadvertent commission of an aveira comes from avodah zarah. So Rabbi says avodah zarah creates the paradigm. What's the paradigm? You did something wrong inadvertently, you bring a chatos. Okay, so now I have a Sunday baby, right? I have a Sunday baby and I have a Sunday baby and a Shabbos baby. I accidentally amal the Sunday baby on Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer says you did something wrong, albeit inadvertently. Therefore, you chay v'chatas. Rabbi Yeshua, no, can't compare it again. Hasam, lo tarid mitzvah, hacha tarid mitzvah. But at the end of the day, Rabbi Yeshua says that's not fair. In the case of avodah zarah, so that is clearly an inadvertent commission of a sinful act. In the case of the bris milah, you are what's called tarud bidvar mitzvah. You are preoccupied with the performance of mitzvah. We'll say again, remember the case here is a very specific one, which is why Rabbi Yeshua could pat. Remember, the case over here is you have two babies. One of them is supposed to get their bris milah on Shabbos. You just got confused which baby is supposed to be circumcised today versus tomorrow. So Rabbi Yeshua is going to say, you are actively involved in the performance of a mitzvah. It is true, you got mixed up on some of the details, but Lamaisa, that is not comparable to a case of inadvertent worship of avodah zarah. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, Rabbi Yeshua, hasam lo tar b'mitzvah, tarud lis asek b'mitzvah gimura. So we'll say this is the point. So Rabbi Yeshua will say, you're actively preoccupied with the performance of a real mitzvah. What does that mean? One of those babies is supposed to be circumcised today, right? We know that the baby is supposed to be circumcised today. So because of that, I am actively preoccupied with the real performance of a mitzvah. He goes on, v'tarud libo l'maher la'asos. And again, I want to be zarah, so therefore I'm going to try to do the mitzvah very quickly. Umitoch tirdo ta'a umal zeh she'in bo mitzvah klal. And lemaisa, again, I'm going ahead and I accidentally give the milah to the wrong baby. But again, Rabbi Yeshua says, I'm tarud b'mitzvah. I'm actively involved. I'm actively engaged in the performance of a mitzvah. And again, I will say, so I just want to point out, it is clear from this, it's clear based on this logic, if there was only one baby, let's say there was only one baby, right, and it was a Sunday baby, and you accidentally give that baby a milah on Shabbos, it sounds like according to Rabbi Yeshua would be the halacha, that you would be chayiv, right? Why would you be chayiv? Because there's no tirda de mitzvah in that case. Remember, the reason why there's tirda, the reason why there's mitzvah preoccupation in this case is why? Because one of the babies is supposed to get his bris milah today. So in other words, there is a bris that's supposed to happen. I just got mixed up with which baby is supposed to be today, which baby is supposed to be tomorrow. But again, if there's no tirda de mitzvah, no one's supposed to get their milah today, then it could very well be that even Rabbi Yeshua would agree that there's a chiyuv chata. So we'll say, so therefore again, I want to point out, so in this version of Rabbi Yehuda, what you have happening over here is as follows. That halacha l'maisa, in a case where you have two babies, an Erev Shabbos baby and a Shabbos baby, and on Shabbos you end up being mal, the Erev Shabbos baby, everyone will agree that you're pater. That's in this version. Everyone will agree that you're pater. Why? Because Lamais, again, in that case, you certainly did a mitzvah. Meaning I will say, you were tarid bidvar mitzvah, and what? Va'asa mitzvah. You have both elements there. The machlokes case is you have a Friday baby and a Sunday baby. You end up being, a Shabbos baby and a Sunday baby. You end up being mal the Sunday baby on Shabbos. So Rabbi Eliezer will say, Chayiv Chatos, you did something wrong. What's there to talk about? And Rabbi Yoshua says, no, you're tarud bidvar mitzvah. That's still called mitzvah preoccupation, and therefore you should be patur. Tani Reb Chia Omer, Tani Reb Chia, Omer Hayi Reb Meir. So Meir used to say as follows, Lo nechluku Rabbi Elazar or Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, al mishahayu lo beis tinokos, echa lamol be'erev Shabbos, ve'echa lamol b'Shabbos. So we'll say, so Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua don't disagree in the following case. Somebody had two babies. One was an Erev Shabbos baby, and one was a Shabbos baby. V'shachach umal es shal Erev Shabbos b'Shabbos, and the mall made a mistake, and he was mal the Friday baby on Shabbos, shu chayiv. That ultimately, again, you're chayiv for that. We'll say, so this is like the first version of Rav Huna. So the Gemara says, Alma nechlaku. So where does the machlokes come up? Al misha hayulo beis tinokos echad lamol achar Shabbos ve'echad lamol b'Shabbos. So we'll say, where does the machlokes come up? The machlokes comes up ultimately against someone that had two babies, one to circumcise on Shabbos, right? Shabbos baby is Sunday baby. And what happens? V'shachach umal es shal achar Shabbos b'Shabbos. And he accidentally gave a milah to the Sunday baby on Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatos. Rabbi Eliezer says that you are chayiv chatos. Rabbi Yoshua poter, and Rabbi Yoshua says that you are poter. To which the Gemara says hashta. Rabbi Yoshua seifa delo ka'avid mitzvah poter. So we'll say, I don't understand. If in the seifa case, where according to Rabbi Yoshua, you didn't even perform a mitzvah, you're poter. I will say that's the Sunday case. So we'll say if you give a Sunday baby a milah on Shabbos, what have you done? Halachically, what have you done? Nothing. Right? Such an act is fundamentally ineffective. And yet Rabbi Yoshua is going to say that you're pater. Reisha de ka'avid mitzvah mechayiv. We'll say, so it doesn't make sense. In the version you just espoused, according to Rabbi Yoshua, if you go ahead and you give, in the case where you give the Sunday baby a milah on Shabbos, you're going to be pater. But if you give the Friday baby a milah on Shabbos, you're going to be chayiv. That does not make any sense. To which the Gemara says, Amri Dvei Rabbi Yanai, Reisha kegon shekadam umal shal Shabbos be'erev Shabbos. Oh, we'll say, what's the case? The case over here could be where you went ahead and you gave the Shabbos baby a milah on Friday. If that's the case, I will say, then what are you left with? All you're left with ultimately, again, is a Friday baby for Shabbos. We'll say now this is a different mix-up. You have a Friday baby and the Shabbos baby. You ended up giving the Shabbos baby its milah on Friday. Then I will say, now obviously, that means you've given a baby a milah on the seventh day. What happens when you give the baby a milah on the seventh day? You have to recircumcise the child. Now obviously when we say recircumcise, you're just going to draw blood, right? There's just going to be a little bit of a drawing of blood. But lemaisa, that cannot be done on Shabbos. So in this case, the Gemara is suggesting you gave the Shabbos baby a milah on Friday, and then you end up giving the Friday baby a milah on Shabbos. Then I will say, in that case, Rabbi Yoshua would agree that you're going to be chayiv. Why? Because I will say, in that situation, there is no license to be machal Shabbos. Why is there no license? So I will say, remember again, Rabbi Yoshua's entire construct is based on the idea of tarud bidvar mitzvah. That essentially when you are tarud bidvar mitzvah, when you are actively preoccupied with the performance of a mitzvah, if you inadvertently do something wrong, you will not be chayiv achatos. But tarud bidvar mitzvah means that there was a legitimate mitzvah to be done that day. That's why these cases are set up that way. This is why we're always dealing with at least one of the two babies. Rabbi say, supposed to get his milah when? On Shabbos. Because again, that way there is a license to do a milah on Shabbos. Now there's a whole mix-up. You do the Friday baby on Shabbos, the Sunday baby. Okay, but Rabbi Yoshua will say, listen, at the end of the day, as long as you are actively involved in the performance of a bona fide mitzvah, even if you inadvertently do something else, you will be pater. But lemaisa, in a case where you accidentally mal the Shabbos baby on Friday, and now the Friday baby on Shabbos, there is no tarud b'dvar mitzvah. Why? Because there is no dvar mitzvah to be performed that day. there is no permissible milah to be performed that day. Because Lamaisa, you messed up the Shabbos baby's milah by doing it on Friday. While it is true, you'll have to do atafas dam bris, you'll have to draw blood again, but that can't be done on Shabbos. That has to wait till Sunday. Where there is no license to perform any type of proper milah, if you inadvertently are mal a child, even Rabbi Yoshua will agree that you're chayiv chatos. Seifa nitna Shabbos litros, Amr Rav Rav Kana, Reisha nami nitna Shabbos litros, legabi tinokas ta'alma. But one second, why can't you say that there is, meaning, there is, why can't you say that even Abosai, that it is still considered to be tar b'dvar mitzvah? Because even though, again, Lamaisa, this baby, right, the two babies, neither of them have an ability to be Duach Shabbos for the Milah, but Milah in general can be set aside for Shabbos. So why don't we say that since, conceptually, Milah can be set aside for Shabbos, therefore, halacha lemaisa, you could be called tar b'dvar mitzvah. That's true. Nevertheless, the Gemara says, Lahai Gavra, Miha Lois Yav. But for this individual, in other words, the mole in question, because of the circumstances, Shabbos is not fit to be set aside for the purpose of Milah, and therefore he'll be Chayiv V'chata. So we'll say, the version of this that the Rambam codifies Lahalocha is the version of Rabbi Yehuda. And we'll say, in that version, Halacha L'maisa, everyone agrees that if everyone agrees in the following case: if you have two babies, one is an Erev Shabbos baby, one is a Shabbos baby, and you end up being mal the Erev Shabbos baby on Shabbos, everyone agrees that you are pater from mechatos, right? Why? Because I said there you have two elements: tarud b'mitzvah and what v'asa mitzvah. So you had mitzvah preoccupation. And remember, you also actually perform this. Remember, in that case, you accidentally circumcised the Friday baby on Shabbos. So number one, you were legitimately preoccupied with mitzvah. And number two, you legitimately did perform a mitzvah. Everyone will agree that you're pater from achatas. The machlokes case between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, is in the situation where halacha l'maisa, you have a Sunday baby and a Shabbos baby. And what ended up happening? L'maisa, again, you end up being mal the Sunday baby on Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer says, Yechai v'chatos. Rabbi Yoshua says that you are going to be pater. I will say, and the Rambam Paskin is like Rabbi Yoshua, that you're pater. So you see, how does the Rambam Paskin halacha l'maisa? There is no chi of chatos when you are tarud b'dvar mitzvah. That's how the Rambam paskins. As long as you are tar b'dvar mitzvah, there's no chiyuv chatas. But remember again, we have to be very careful with our definition. What does tar b'dvar mitzvah actually mean? Right? Tar b'dvar mitzvah means what? Means that lemaisa, you are actively involved in the performance of a mitzvah. And what? The performance of the mitzvah was a legitimate performance. In other words, there was a legitimate mitzvah to be performed. Under those circumstances, if you inadvertently do something that's a chiyuv chatos, you'll be part from the chiyuv chatos. Good, that's the Rambam. Good, Mishnah. We'll say, let's go weiter. Katan nima l'shmonas. Here we go, an interesting discussion here. The Mishnah says as follows: Katan nima l'shmona letisha ula asara ula chadasar ula yadbei. So also listen to this. Mila can happen anywhere between the 8th day and the 12th day. Lo pachas v'lo yoser. You can't do a milah any earlier than day number 8, and you can't do a milah any later than day number 12. So says the Gemara, ha-ketzad. So what's the case? So says, you know what, this sounds like a lot like the opening Mishnah in Megillah, right? Megillah Nikreis, right? So on and so forth. So right, milah could be done earliest day 8, latest day 12. So watch this. The Gemara says, obviously when we say later than day 12, of course, the milah could be performed later. Rahman, child is sick. Right? So child is sick, you push off the milah as long as you need to. We saw that in yesterday's daf. What it's saying is under normal circumstances, right? A healthy baby, the latest you're going to have it because of calendrical circumstances is day number 12. Says the Gemara. So what's the case? Okay, so kedarko l'shmona. Right? So we'll say, so again, kedarko, normal case, the milah will happen in Meretz Hashem on day number 8. Nolad lebein hashmashas. So what happens if the baby's born in the twilight period? So you're not sure. Again, it was supposed to. Let's say the baby was born ben hashmashas, on day number 1. So remember again, we're not sure is ben hashmashas part of day number 1 or is it part of day number 2? So obviously, out of doubt, we're going to push the milah later. which makes sense, because remember again, if you push the Mila earlier, and if you're wrong, it turns out that what? The baby didn't have a bona fide Mila. If, however, you go ahead and you push the Mila later, okay, you might have delayed the Mila, but at least you know it's a proper Mila. So that's what the Shabbos said. The baby was born Ben Hashmashas, then ultimately we'd push Mila, would become day number 9. Watch this. Ben Hashmashas Erev Shabbos. So we'll say, so what happens if the baby's born Ben Hashmashas Erev Shabbos? So remember again, as we saw before, Mila is only Docha Shabbos when halacha l'maisa, we know for sure that it's a Mila Bismana, right? A proper Mila. But if at the end of the day it's not a Mila Bismana, a bona fide Mila Bismana, it's not Docha Shabbos. So we'll say in that case, you'd push it to Sunday. Well then what are you up to already? That's Nima La'asara. That means Sunday would already be day number 10. Yom Tov La'achara Shabbos. And we'll say in that case, the baby was a little bit of a chagad over here. The baby was born Ben Hashmashas of Shabbos, or Ben Hashmashas of Erev Shabbos, I should say. And what? And Yom Tov follows Shabbos. So we'll say they would push it to 1. So they would push it off an additional day. So now you couldn't do it Shabbos, you couldn't do it Sunday, you do it Monday. That's Nimola Chadasar. Then the baby would have its Mila ultimately on day number 11. Beis Yamim Shal Rosh Hashanah. We'll say what happens if again, baby was born Ben Hashmashas of Erev Shabbos, and the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, remember again, because Rosh Hashanah is 2 days in Eretz Yisrael as well. 2 days of Rosh Hashanah fall out after Shabbos on Sunday and Monday. So what's the Chabos say? They would push off the Mila until when? They would push off the Mila until day number 12. Katan hachola. Shabbos say, now that's why the Mishnah says. Shabbos say, therefore again, so under normal circumstances, Mila happens anywhere between days number 8 and days number 12. However, katan hachola, if a child Rahman al-Islan is sick, ein molin osu ad sheyavri. Then you wait for the child to get healthy before you go ahead and give him the bris milah. Says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Chalt Sasa Chama. If a child gets fever, and I will say, now interestingly enough, the reason the Gemara goes out and chooses fever is because Lamaisa, the assumption is that fever affects the entire body. So what happens if the baby gets fever? So Nostin lo kol zayin lahavroso. We go ahead and we give the baby 7 days to recover. So we'll say, even if the fever breaks, interesting enough, the Gemara says, you give the baby 7 days post-fever to recover. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, when we say 7 days, does 7 days mean 7 24-hour periods? Or does it mean just 7 calendar days? So we'll say, let's say the fever breaks at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon. So do we say, okay, Monday's day 1, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth? Or no, we say 7 24-hour periods beginning with Monday at 5 o'clock. To which the Gemara says, Tashma, the Tani Luda. So we'll say Luda said, Rashi says it's the name of a Chacham. That was his name, Luda. So Luda says, Yom Havraso, ki Yom Hivaldo. The days of his healing are like the days of his birth. My love, my Yom Hivaldo or Holodo, Loba Ina Me'islei. So we'll say, so do we say just like a bris milah? Or we'll say, so milah is given on the 8th day. That doesn't mean me'es la'es days. That doesn't mean 24-hour periods. What does it mean? It means ultimately, again, 7 calendar days. Right? If the baby's born 2 minutes before Shkia, 2 minutes before sunset, so Lamaisa again, that's day 1. That's day 1. So Iluda is saying that the days of his recovery are just like the days of his Mila, days of his birth. Does that not mean that just like by Mila, they're not 24-hour days, they're just calendar days? So to again, by his healing, it's also calendar days. I'm sorry. To which the Gemara says, Lo, Adif Yom Hivaraso, Miyom Holodo. No, days of his healing are even stronger than the days of his birth. How so? Dilu Yom Holodo, Lo Ba'ina Me'es Leis, because I was saying, calculating days of his birth for me the purposes. You don't need 24-hour periods. Vilu Yom Havaraso Ba'inan Me'es Leis. Be it interestingly enough, for his healing, you require 7 24-hour periods. So we'll say, sounds like the conclusion of the Gemara over here is that halacha l'maisa, we give the baby 7 days and 7 complete days, 7 24-hour periods from the time that the illness stops until ultimately, again, we do Mila. And I will say, now, obviously, so much of this is also based on their medical assessment. But they were given, remember again, you're also dealing with potential issues of sakanas nefashos. So whenever we have sakana, we're always machmir with sakanas nefashos. So again, Chazal saying 7 days from when the fever breaks or 7 days from when the illness stops, then you can give them the Mila afterwards. Next, Mishnah. So we spoke about this before. So remember again, tzitzin are little pieces of flesh. So we'll say, let's say you have a situation where the moel essentially doesn't perform a clean job. That's what happens here. And he leaves behind pieces of flesh on the tip of the aver. So the shaila is, do those pieces of flesh, do they negate the mila or not? To which the Gemara says it depends. These are the pieces of skin that are potentially ma'akev the mila. For example, basar hachofa esrov ha'atara. So say if you have literally flesh, pieces of skin that are covering the atara. We'll say the atara is the tip, the corona, right? The top of the aver. So if you have pieces of flesh that cover the majority of the atara, of the tip, then einachinami, that invalidates the milah. Ve'ino ochel b'truma. And I will say if he was a Kohen, he would not be permitted to eat truma. I will say, now what does that mean? Meaning a Kohen who's an orel, right, an uncircumcised Kohen is not permitted to eat truma. So what the Mishnah is essentially saying is, if the Kohen has the majority of the atara, the majority of the tip covered by these pieces of skin, then he's effectively an orel. He's effectively an orel. So the it's actually very interesting. What happens if the person is very obese? Right, balbas means obese. Let's say the person is very heavy, and as a result, or we'll say it looks like because there are additional folds of skin, he looks uncircumcised, even though again he's not. He looks uncircumcised, even though he's not. What's the halacha? Nitakno mipnei maris ayin. We go ahead and we cut away some additional skin because of maris ayin. Well, this is really fascinating. So the idea is that really incredible that halacha l'maisa is not just enough to actively be circumcised. A person must look circumcised. So therefore, again, if the person is a bal basar, person is heavy, so they go ahead and they cut away additional skin. Rashi says, Shlo yehi nira ka'arel. Person shouldn't look like an arel. Amud Beis says the Gemara, mal v'lo para. We'll say another interesting case. So we'll say, what happens if mal means as follows? The way Mila works is as follows. The moel will go ahead and cut the arla, but then Abba say ultimately again there's a priya. Priya means the peeling back of the arla. Ultimately, sorry, a lot of technical issues today. My apologies. So I'll say so priya is the act of going ahead and pulling back the foreskin. So pulling back. So there's a membrane underneath the arla as well. That's pulled back. So that's called priya. So what happens if mal v'lo para? What happens again if there was circumcision but there was not priya? So what's the halacha? Ki'ilu lo mal. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, mila without priya, without the peeling back of the arla and the membrane, is as if there was no mila at all. Says the Gemara. So Amarav Avina, Amarabi Avina, Amarabi Yirmiyah Bar Abba, Amarav Basra Hachofa es Rov Gov Hashalatara. So we'll say, just as an aside, the Gemara says when we speak about that there are tzitzin, there are ma'akvin es hamila, tzitzin that go and negate the mila. The Mishnah gives you a basra chofa es rov ha'atara. If you go ahead and you have flesh that covers the majority of the atara, you might have thought, Rabbi, that that's only just the circumference of the atara, of the tip, to which of the widest part of the tip, to which the Gemara says, no, even basra chofa es rov gov hashalatara. Even Rabbi say if it's at the narrow part, the tip of the tip, that also goes ahead and potentially invalidates the milah if the majority of it is covered with these tzitzin. Good. Then Haya Bal Basar, we'll say if a person, the Mishnah Gemara says a person was very heavy. So halacha l'maisa, again, under those circumstances, we would go ahead and cut away some additional flesh in order to go ahead and make the person look properly circumcised. Amr Shmuel, Katan hamasur bo babasaron also calls man shemiskasha v'niramol in otzarach lamos. So I'll say, so again, how do we tell? So again, in general, how do you assess this? So we'll say this is actually very interesting. So Shmuel says as follows: if you have a katan hamasur bo babasar, so I'll say literally again, it's an interesting lashon. You have a child who is literally covered in flesh. Covered in flesh, a heavy child, right? So the child is a little bit obese. So what happens? Rabbi says, so now again, the problem is the extra folds of skin cover the aver as well. So Rowan also calls Manchem Iskasha Venira Mol Inotzarach Lamo. So we'll say what we do is as follows. We try to assess like this. If the aver was erect, so again, would the aver look circumcised or not? As long as it would look circumcised in an erect state, then you don't ultimately have to do milah. Ve'im lav, but if not, tzarich lamo. Then ultimately, again, you do have to cut away a little bit of additional skin. B'masnisa tanabos, we have a different version of this. Masnisa tanar. Rab Shimon Omer katan hamasurba babasar. If you have a child who's a little bit obese, roin also calls man shemis kasha ve'eno nira mo. So we view. It sounds like it's the same idea. That any time we look at it as follows: if the aver was erect, would he not look mahol? If he would not look mahol, tzarich lemolo. Then you have to cut away some additional skin. Ve'im lav, eno tzarich lemolo. But if not, you don't have to cut away additional skin. Says the Gemara, my benayah. What's the nafkamina between these two versions? Iko benayhu nira ve'eno nira. The nafkamina between these two versions is what we call nira ve'eno nira. Look at Rashi. Ika benayhu nira ve'eno nira. L'shmuel nira mahol. So as according to Shmuel, it's only if the child actively looks circumcised that you don't have to cut away additional skin. Hanira ve'inonira tzarich. But lamaisa again, if the baby sometimes looks circumcised, sometimes doesn't look circumcised, according to Shmuel, you'd have to cut away some additional skin. On the flip side, the Gemara says, Lemasnisa einonirahu ditzarich, hanira ve'inonira eretza. So I'll say, interestingly enough, so what happens if the baby sometimes looks circumcised, sometimes doesn't look circumcised? According to Shmuel, the baby must look circumcised. So if at times it doesn't look circumcised, you'd have to go ahead and cut away additional skin. According to the reading of the Braisa, halacha lamaisa, as long as at times the child looks circumcised, that's good enough, and you would not have to cut away additional skin. Good. Mal velo para. So again, Mishnah said that if you did circumcision, you did milah, but you didn't do prima. So you did not peel back the additional skin. Tan Rabbanon, Hamal, well, this is incredible. Hamal Omer, Asher Kisham Sav Tzivanu Alamilas. Well, so listen to this interesting halacha. So if a person, the Moel says the bracha of Asher Kiddusham Sav Tzivanu Al Hamila. Right? That's the bracha that he makes. Avia ben Omer, Asher Kiddusham Sav Tzivanu Lachnisa Beviso Sha'av Mavinu. And the father says the bracha of Lachniso Beviso, to enter my son into the covenant of Armavino. It's actually interesting. Some of the Rishonim bring down what is that a bracha about? Because remember again, the Moel already made the bracha of Alamila. So what's the meaning of the father's bracha? Sher Kiddisham Sasavitivanu Lachniso Beviso Armavino. It's interestingly enough, according to many, the meaning of that bracha is Degel. Reuben has a whole piece on this. The whole meaning of that bracha is a father obligates his son to be Moser Nefesh for Yiddishkeit. That's what it means. That's the meaning of the bracha. The same Avraham Avinu was willing to enter into the Kivshon Ha'esh, right, for his beliefs. So a father is mechayiv his son to be Moser Nefesh. To be Moser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. Isn't that incredible? Even before we could make an active commitment to be Moser Nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our fathers go ahead and obligate us in that chiv. It's quite incredible. Ha'omdim omrim kishem shenichnas labris and those who are standing around after they hear the father's bracha, ultimately again say the statement, the same way that you entered into bris, so too shall you enter into Torah, to chuppah, and to ma'asim tovim. Rabbi say, isn't it incredible to see that it's the same exact formulation thousands of years later? Isn't it absolutely incredible? V'amavarich omer, asher, and Rabbi say again, the person who then makes the brachas afterwards. You have the moel, the Avia Ben, and a person making the brachas by the Kriyas Hashem. What does he say? Asher Kidash Yedid Mi Beten, sanctified the baby from the womb. Chok B'She'iro Sam, he put his statute in the baby's flesh. V'Tzatza'av Chasam Ba'os Beris Kodesh, and to his offspring he has sealed them with the signs of the Holy Covenant. Akin B'Scharzos Al Chai Chalkinu Tzurenu, Save Lahatzil Yididus She'reinu Mishachas. As a result, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please save your remnant from destruction. L'man Brisa Shal Sam B'Sarenu, because of the bris that you have put in our flesh. Baruch Atu Hashem. Kores habris. Rebbe say mamish verbatim, what we do to this very day. Incredible. Hamalas Hagerim Omer. If someone gives a milah to Gerim, because you also remember again, when this is talking about, so somebody converts. When somebody converts, what's the bracha you make? Baruch atah Hashem, Baruch atah Hashem Gerim melech haolam, Asher kshav mitzvah v'tzivanu ala milah. So same idea, but say, it's the same bracha. It's the same bracha that ultimately, again, the Moa makes when he circumcises a regular baby. Ala milah. V'mevarich omer. And Rabbi say again, now this is interesting. Who's the mevarich over here, right? Remember again, in the case of a baby, so we have the Moa making the bracha of ala milah, and we have the father making the bracha la'achnis or b'shalom ravinu. Here, I'm circumcising a convert. So ultimately, again, so the ger says the bracha of, or I should say the Moa says ala milah, and who's the mevarich? So we'll say the mevarich b'pashtos in this situation is the Beis Din. The Beis Din is going ahead and administering the milah. Says Asher K'tasham Sivanu Lamol As Hagerim Ulahatif Mehem Dam Bris. Shalmalei. This is all the bracha. Shalmalei Dam Bris. For were it not for Dam Bris, Lonis Kaimu Shamayim Va'aretz Shnei Amar Imlo Brisi Yomam Valaylo Chuko Shamayim Va'aretz Lo Samti Baruch Atah Hashem Kores Habris. So we'll say, so again, that's the bracha that the Beis Din will make according to the Gemara. Hamalas Avadim. What happens if you give milah to Avadim? So what's the Eved Kanani? So remember again, Eved Kanani comes along, he gets milah l'shem avdos. So what's the halacha for being mal Avadim? Omer Asher Kiddushan Misasav V'tzivanu Lamul Es Ha'avadim Ulahatif Mehem Dambris. I'm sorry. We'll say Hamalas Avadim Omer Asher Kiddushan Misasav V'tzivanu Ala Milah. So we'll say, so again, the bracha is always the same on the bris itself. For a baby, for a convert, for an eved, ala milah. That's the bracha. And then again, the mevarech, in this case, b'pashtos, the mevarech is who? Is the master, says, Asher Yisham Sav Tzivanu Lamol Es Ha'avadim, Ulahatif Mehem Dam Bris. Kush Baruch Hu, you're the one who commanded us to go and circumcise the avadim, to draw from them dam bris. She'amalei dam bris, for were it not for dam bris, chukos shamayim va'aretz lonis kaimu. Right? Then again, the heavens and the earth would not endure. Shnei Amar, Imlo Brisi Yomam Valayla Chuko Shamayim Va'aretz Lo Samti Baruch Atah Hashem Kores Habris. So we'll say there's much to talk about with each of these brachas, because the brachas themselves are quite beautiful and quite incredible. Rashi points out, you'll take a look at the Rashis over here, in terms of, especially, again, the milah by avadim is not really shaykh to us, even the milah by gerim is not shaykh, I'm saying to us, because we're not going to operate in the capacity of a Beis Din b'pashtos, but lemaisa, the brachas that we say for naming a baby are really, or as part of the baby, are really quite incredible. A reference to Yitzchak Avinu, a reference to Kedusha Merechem, highlighting, and also all of these brachos highlighting the centrality of bris. Literally, if you look at the wording of the bris, it's clear that in the eyes of Chazal, it's the mitzvah of bris milah that mamish sustains heaven and earth. Hadrun alach, Rabbi Eliezer Demila Rabosai. Yeshikoyach Mazel Tov, Emir Hashem tomorrow, Rosh Chodesh Av. We go ahead and we begin a brand, right? Tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh Av? Yeah, I think so. Right? Emir Hashem, we go ahead and we begin a brand new parak. Let's say Yeshikoyach to everyone.